At 2 years old, Alan Lazarus lost his father in a car accident. 24 years later, Alan also was in a near fatal car accident, and he questioned his life's choices and reached an all time low. Now, through his search, he found the answers that he needed, and how this turned into helping multitudes find meaning and purpose. You do not want to miss today's interview with Alan Lazarus. Stay tuned.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
So, Alan, would you please tell us that part of your story, what you were going through emotionally, how it affected you, maybe some pivot points?
So the first thing to understand about this is that I didn't actually fully comprehend this until way later. So I'm going to be 36 in November. So I call myself Alan version 3.6, and those challenges started for me very young. And so everyone starts in different circumstances, and mine were definitely very challenging. So as you had mentioned in that intro, I lost my father when I was 2 years old to a car accident. He was 28. And from age 3 to 14, I actually had a stepfather. So my real last name is actually McCorkle. My birth last name is McCorkle. So my birth father was John McCorkle. He was part of a big Irish Catholic family. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette, all J. Yeah, exactly. And so after my birth father, John, passed away, we sort of became the Lazaruses. And I took my stepfather's, Steve Lazarus's, last name around age 6 or 7. And we were sort of trying to be the Lazaruses, so we didn't associate as much with the McCorkles, just unconsciously or consciously, I don't know. But when I was 14 years old, that was the hardest year of my life. And I did not know that at the time, but it's very, very clear in hindsight. So 14, stepfather leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. That same year, my sister moves out with her older boyfriend. That same year, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister Sandy, and my Aunt Sandy sort of ostracizes us from that side of the family. And we don't really associate much with the McCorkles anymore because we're the Lazaruses. So in some ways, you could say I kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14. Yeah, and so that definitely created some abandonment challenges that I didn't know about. There's 4 trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is the appease one, where you just kind of appease everybody and become sort of this social coward who just contorts himself or herself to whatever the social group wants. And so that was definitely my social trauma response. But behind the scenes, when no one was watching, it was fight, aim higher, work harder, get smarter. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. And so I became this sort of esoteric, semi-gifted, semi-math genius kid who got straight A's through all of high school. Got as much scholarships and financial aid as I possibly could, because when my stepdad left, we went from boats and ski trips and snowmobiles and motorcycles and, sort of the mid to late 90s dot-com bubble era to now I get free lunch at school because our income is so low. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. I shop at, Salvation Army and stuff like that. Again, we weren't going to starve, but my dream college was WPI, kind of like a mini MIT in Massachusetts. It was $50,000 a year. It was an engineering school. It's one of the best engineering undergrad colleges in the world. And that was my dream, to go there. And I went from, I hope I get in, to even if I do get in, I don't know how I'm going to go. So I did really well in high school, got as much scholarships and financial aid as possible, got my computer engineering degree, bachelor's, I got my master's in business, and then I was off to the races. And by off to the races, I mean, this is 2011. I graduated my bachelor's. 2012, I graduated my master's. And that was 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 when the economy was kind of coming back after '08. And so in the 21st century, computer engineers are very sought after. So I went from a broke high school and college student to very, very sought after in the economy. So I went from 65 to 85, 85 to 105, 105 to 125, and then 125 all the way to almost 100, almost $200,000 a year. It was 180 is where I peaked. And after that, and that was all different tech companies, iRobot, Sensata Technologies, Oz Development, Lens Americas, different Tyco safety products. And then I eventually landed at a company called Cognex, which I know we're going to talk about industrial automation and that sort of revelation. But ultimately, that's when I got in my car accident. So at this point, I'm 26. I had already paid off 84 grand worth of college debt in a single year. I had $150,000 in a Vanguard account with different stocks, tech companies, ETFs, index funds, which are sort of the same thing. And I was used to going without. So I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife. I had my girlfriend Courtney at the time. We lived on a lake. My rent was $500 a month. We split it. I drove a 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in cash for $5,000. So I was used to going very frugally. So I made so much money, but I didn't really need much. And so that was a weird sort of thing. And then I get in my car accident. So I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. Actually, there's only been 2 human beings from my mom's side that I've actually ever seen since I was 14. One of them's name's Jeff, and then his son, Dan, my second cousin, was in the car with me. We're in New Hampshire. I was supposed to yield. I didn't. The yield sign was covered by the snowbanks back in 2015. Bad dark winter night. I end up on the wrong side of the road, my fault. And then I look up from the GPS, not partying or drinking or anything like that, but we're heading to TGI Fridays. I look at the GPS, I look up, and I see the brightest lights I'd ever seen. This is the mortality moment where I thought for sure that was it. I thought it was a Mack truck. 2 things saved my life. Number 1, it was not a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. Number 2, the Volkswagen Passat. Thank you, Volkswagen. This was, I used to call this car the Tank. This was a German-engineered steel trap of a car. I used to call it the Tank. The whole front end was completely smashed in. This was not a fender bender, but the frame stayed and the airbags deployed. So cousin hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face on the airbag. So physically we're okay, but this is the second chance my dad never got. My dad died in a car when he was 28. I'm 26 at the time. I've seen pictures of his car, and the pictures of my car don't look very different. So just completely existential quarter life crisis type of moment. And in hindsight, this is the shortest synopsis I can give, which is I was an achiever. I was improvement oriented. I was professionally developed, LinkedIn, cover letter, resume, bachelor's, master's, but I wasn't self-improvement oriented. I wasn't personal growth, and I wasn't personally developed. So after that, I flipped the script. I went all the way past broke, started my own company. So I went from externally successful and deeply unfulfilled internally to now I'm super fulfilled internally, happy, healthy, productive, fitness model, fitness coach, fitness competitor. And I love my life, but I'm externally unsuccessful. I ran out of money. And so I always joke tongue in cheek and say both of those kind of suck. And so it's not until my 30s where I started to get to the place where I'm both successful and fulfilled. Successful externally, but fulfilled internally. And I actually think that's where everyone really wants to get. And now that's what I focus on in my business coaching and that kind of stuff. So that's the shortest I tried to condense 35 years into, less than 5 minutes.
Well, you painted an incredible picture. You definitely took us with you down that road. And I appreciate that because you've done this before, you hit all the bases. So thank you for that. Okay, so anything else you want to share? Continue.
First and foremost, I appreciate that. I do try to tell my story as well as I can. But I think the important piece is I didn't really understand a lot of that while I was going through it. And I think that's really quite the lesson, which is I started doing therapy in my 30s. And I often joke, I say guys can't even ask for directions, never mind get a therapist. But I've been doing therapy and I've really rewatched the movie of my own life over and over and over again, not only through therapy, but I also have a very good memory. And a lot of it was really terrible and a lot of it was really wonderful. And one thing I'm very grateful for, and I think this is the thing that I want to share when you ask that, is people say adversity is your advantage because it creates drive. But I actually disagree with that, even though I used to think that was true. Adversity, if you have a fixed mindset and you don't believe in yourself, is just adversity. For me, I always had a lot of self-belief, and I always felt a little bit fairly gifted. I never used to share that, but I need to have the courage here. And if it wasn't for my self-belief and my powerful intellect, I doubt that I would have made it to where I am. And I also was born in a free country that invested in my education, because without the financial aid and scholarships, I wouldn't be where I am today either, because I went to one of the best tech schools in the world, and I was surrounded by, the right people at that school. And before that, I definitely was not surrounded by the right people. So I just want to make that as clear as possible, because ultimately the adversity, my mom and stepdad did not get along, and that's a very polite way to put it on a public medium. But there's something called an ACE score, adverse childhood experiences, and I have a very, very high ACE score. And most people, statistically speaking, who have a high ACE score do not actually achieve much. And they certainly don't live fulfilling, meaningful lives. So statistically speaking, mortality is very high for people with high ACE scores. And I'm glad I turned things around after my car accident. That's what I'm grateful for.
You made a statement that you sent to me, and I'd like you to expound on that. And that is, I began to see a scary pattern in the world. Do you recall that statement?
Yes, definitely. So I worked in industrial automation, and I was an inside sales engineer for a company called Cognex, and they sell machine vision equipment all across the world. And so picture manufacturing facilities, Amazon, they do both barcodes, data stuff, and they also do machine vision. So picture water bottles going down a line 100 per minute, and they take pictures of every bottle to make sure the cap's on right, and they measure that kind of thing. And so machine vision equipment is the main thing Cognex is known for. So I did inside sales engineering team there, and then I got promoted to outside sales, and I managed Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Massachusetts in my early 20s. And so I drove mostly in Connecticut, but Vermont and Mass too, to these big manufacturing facilities. And what would happen is I would go to, let's just say, think of a really famous ice cream company. Okay, I'm at that facility, and I sell equipment that I get a good commission for, and I'm making a lot of money. And I see these people, I'm on my way out, and I looked at the walls on these manufacturing facilities, and some of them had pictures from the past, 70s, 80s, 90s, even earlier than that. And what used to be in these manufacturing facilities was thousands of people working assembly lines and that kind of thing.
Right.
And now it's, one floor manager and all robotics for the most part. And not always, but usually there's significantly less jobs available, basically, what it comes down to. And I remember I was at this ice cream facility, and I saw these people looking at the cartons, and they were making sure the cartons were good and the cap was on right, and quality assurance. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, so I just sold equipment that's going to do that faster, quicker, easier, cheaper, because these cameras don't get sick. These cameras don't need vacation time. These cameras don't need healthcare. And so I make a big commission check. I leave, and I've done my job well. All of us have been to a grocery store where there's self-checkout. Now, I remember one time I actually got food from a conveyor belt at a McDonald's, and it came to me drive-through on a conveyor belt. At the end of the day, robotics is coming, and it's already, there are certain car manufacturers that their entire facility is only robots now. And my point is, and this is what scared the hell out of me, and I'm realizing in hindsight I'm kind of an esoteric math guy, and not a lot of people are really thinking this way, but I certainly am. So I saw this trend happening. So statistically speaking, as much as I used to be too much of a coward to share this, statistically speaking, the less educated population grows exponentially faster than the more educated population. And here's why. So the less educated population statistically has more children and has more children younger. So you picture, 5 people have 5 kids, those 5 have 5 kids, and that kind of thing. And the more educated population tends to have less children, statistically speaking, and wait longer to have those children. And so the less educated population is actually growing faster than the educated population, for lack of better phrasing. And the problem is that the jobs available for the less educated population are exponentially decreasing at the same time.
Right.
And so I saw this pattern, and if you picture a graph with one curve of jobs available to less educated people going down like a hockey stick, and then the exponential growth of the population of the less educated going up like a hockey stick, it creates a huge gap. And so that scared the hell out of me. And if you're not a part of the solution, you're a part of the problem. And so for me, Next Level University, my company now, the real underneath it, it's level up, the slogan is level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business. And that is true. And that's what we do. But ultimately what it is a place for you to reach your potential anywhere in the world. As long as you have an internet connection, you can, if you're willing to work and actually have humility, you can retool. You can retool and you can learn skills and you can develop yourself and you can work on your character and you can work on your goals and your metrics and habits. And you really can build a resume and a magnificent career. Because the truth is, if you're uneducated, you are in serious trouble. And the reason why is because the world is getting more exponentially complex. I'm a computer engineer, right? So I know how to build this computer. I built my first computer when I was 12. I'm not in trouble in the same way that other people are. And I'm not trying to say that as some pretentious guy. I mean, people know where I started, right? Dad died at 2, stepdad left at 14. Like I was not built with a silver spoon. And it was the opposite, if anything. However, I'm so scared for people who aren't retooling. I met someone recently, his name's Derek. I love him, good heart, great-hearted guy, doesn't even have a laptop. And my brain goes, that is so alarming. And the reason why is not because Derek's bad. Derek's great. It's because the whole future is technology. And if you're not in tech, you don't realize how quickly you're in trouble. And the people who are in tech do realize that. And that doesn't mean there isn't going to be a place for other things, but robotics is coming quick, both consumer and on the business to business side. And if we are not retooling and becoming more and more marketable and more educated and learning these things, you won't be sought after in the future. And if you're not sought after, you're gonna struggle. And so the future is bright for the people who retool and who reinvent themselves. And so now I have a company that helps people do that.
One question I have is, what about the fields that are non-tech and that cannot be automated? How does that fit into this scenario?
Well, there's the long-term philosophical view, and then there's the sort of practical short-term one. I'll try to do both. In the practical short term, there's certain things that won't be automated, but everything will eventually be automated. And I know that sounds someone who's not. So, for example, the trucking industry, right? Self-driving. My car drives itself. So it's called supervisor mode. It's a Model Y Tesla, and it's called supervisor mode. So I have to be in the driver's seat, and it calls me out if I'm not paying attention because it has a camera. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it really does drive itself. We went from Massachusetts to South Carolina. My beautiful girlfriend, her family has a place down there. And we drove through 8 states, and I only had to stop this thing maybe 5 times. So I'm supervising it, but it's driving itself basically the whole time. And so the truth is everything can be automated eventually. Now, the only things that can't be are the art side. So the creative things that are uniquely human. So for example, no one can be me. So my podcast is a great example of you can't really automate that. Right. You can try and you can do an AI version of Alan, but people are not going to connect with that because humans connect with humans. And so business is really 3 main things. And I'm a CEO of 18-person team, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to build credibility. The point is business comes down to 3 main things. The first one is metrics and structures and systems. And I'm really, really good at that, but I'm an engineer, so that tends to be where I stay. Number 2 is products and services. So products and services, AirPods is a product, service would be my business coaching. Okay, so you need to be really good at metrics, structures, and systems. You need to be really good at products and services. The third one is people. You have to be really good with people. And that's the one I suck at personally because I'm not a very likable dude. And I think in analytics and numbers and that modality of thinking statistically rare, so I seem like a robot to people. I've gotten decent at it because I was such a social coward as a kid that I learned how to fit in, and that's served me later. But really, a lot of engineers say I struggle to communicate with humans, and they say humans because they don't feel human. When in reality, the playful joke I say is when a girl asks you in high school, "Hey, do I look fat in this?" and you say yes at level 6 out of 10, that doesn't go very well. But that's what engineers actually think. And by the way, I think that about me too. So I'm not trying to be unkind. It's just a numbers modality of thinking. But ultimately, everything can be automated that is of utility. In the early 1900s, I think it was something like 70% of the workforce was in agriculture, and now it's only 3%. And again, don't quote me on those numbers, but the point is that everything will eventually be automated except for creative endeavors and except for people to people type of stuff. And so really what you need to do is leadership. Leadership can never really be automated. So if you focus on leadership, you focus on creative endeavors, and you focus on effective communication with people and learning how to lead by example, I think those are the really most marketable skills of the future.
That is so well stated. Oh my goodness, I'm writing notes like crazy. Thank you for that. It's so enlightening. I really appreciate the information that you have given to the audience. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I have a statement here from you that I'd like you to expound on, and that says, your mission is to help others fully design fulfilling lives, maximize their own unique potential, and build aligned businesses they love on their own terms. We're going to talk about that in just a moment.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph. In her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope, she relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
Continue what we were discussing and also now elaborate on what you can do and how you can help the audience.
Yeah, so the quote that you had mentioned was meaningful and purposeful lives, maximizing one's own unique potential, which then presupposes your own unique contribution, not only to the economy, but to your community and to the world. And then on top of that, design fulfilling lives on your own terms. So the design is the key word there. And I'm an engineer, so everything's design. I don't do anything superfluous. I've never once, I always joke with my business partner because he's not an engineer. And he playfully calls our podcast The Genius and the Joker. And he's funny. He's bright too, but it's fun because he doesn't have math as his first modality of thinking. And so for me, everything's design. I always joke with him. I say, I've never once said, hey, I'm going to go build a company and then gone to the beach. I said this to Kev once. I said, I've never once woken up in the morning and then thought, oh, what do I feel like doing today? So for me, everything's by design, and you don't have to be like me. However, if you don't have your future well designed, you are in trouble. And I need to say that because I care. You're not going to stumble upon a great life. No one does.
Right.
And if you do, it's luck. Just like the lottery, right? I mean, yeah, you can play the lottery and you might get lucky, and then they're going to highlight the one winner instead of the 10 million losers. But ultimately, that same person ends up broke because they never really learned how to actually do finance. And so ultimately underneath this, at the end of the day, okay, what is fulfillment? What is a meaningful life for you? What is meaningful work for you? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are the skills that you need to develop to be relevant in the future? And how do you not end up selling horses after the car is invented? And that's a metaphor because obviously I still love horses. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you are unique and everything has to start with self-awareness. Most people, so I read this in January of 2024. We do meetups every month for free online, and this one was called Setting Clear Goals for 2024. It's wild that it's 10 months in now. But so when I was doing research for that, I looked this up, and essentially what it said was only 4% of individuals, based on this research, ever have written goals. Of those 4%, only 8% of them ever actually achieve those goals. And to me, that scared me. It didn't make any sense. That's like a stadium of 100,000 people, and only the upper right balcony ever writes and achieves those goals. And to me, that was very alarming because as an esoteric weirdo, I've never not have written goals that I achieve. I was unfulfilled sometimes when I achieved them because they were not aligned with my core values, and I didn't know who the heck I was because of my trauma. But the place you got to start, and I figured this out, I think one of the reasons most people, because here's the thing, statistically speaking, most people are never going to achieve their goals and dreams. And that scares me, and it makes me so sad. That's so sad, right? And if you look around, I mean, look, most people are not in great shape. Most people are not in great marriages. Most people do not live on mansions in the beach. Most people are not living their dream career. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck. Like there's a lot of depressing stuff. And I'm not trying to make this depressing, because there is hope, and here's the hope. If you start with self-awareness and say, okay, who am I? And what is my true potential? What am I gifted at, if anything? And if I'm not gifted, that's okay. I can make up for it with humility and work ethic. If you're not gifted, you better be humble. Okay. If you are gifted,
Good
you
point.
still should have humility, but you don't need it as much, I guess. But trust me, lack of humility will come bite you in the butt eventually. I can speak from experience on that one. But ultimately, most people set their goals based on low self-awareness. So most
Good
people
point.
who do,
Wow.
Thank you. So, and again, I do want to make this as clear as possible to anyone out there listening. I'm not just talking. So I've been mentoring for 10 years, coaching for 8, and I have 26 people I'm coaching currently, all different industries, all different backgrounds, all different businesses, all different men plus women, all over the world, different cultures, different ethnicities, different races, all of that. And so you see these common things that are the root cause of why people are not winning. And it's my job to identify those. Like when your car is broke down, you go to a mechanic, they identify what's wrong, and then they fix it. I don't know anything about cars. I don't know how to do my own plumbing, but I know human beings. And so what happens is I identify the root cause of the challenge. Most challenges come down to low self-awareness. There's 3 things that people are inaccurate about. Picture a self-driving car that has a camera that's covered in mud. It'll keep driving off a cliff on accident and then blaming the world, when in reality it just has a blind spot. That's a good metaphor for, I think, how people live. So most of us just think really inaccurately. That's why kids don't make good choices. They just don't know any better, right? So 7-year-olds don't make good choices because they're just dumb. Like all 7-year-olds are kind of dumb. Not dumb compared to other 7-year-olds, but if you're not smarter than a 7-year-old, you're in serious trouble. And I'm not trying to be unkind. So at the end of the day, the idea here is we make poor decisions and we set goals based on low self-awareness, and then we wonder why we don't achieve them. When in reality, the reason we don't achieve them is one of 3 things. You either don't know yourself, you don't know other people, or you don't know the world. So you have to know yourself, other people, and the world, how it works and why it works that way. So the first one is self-driving car needs an accurate current location. That's self-awareness. The second one is it needs an accurate destination location, which is a goal based on that current location. And it needs to know it can't fly. It needs to know it can't be a submarine. It needs to know what its capabilities are, right? Strengths and weaknesses. So if the Tesla thinks it can be a submarine, it's going to drive into the ocean and right. That's what a lot of people do in life is they don't understand that they aren't a strong speaker. So they want to start a podcast, but they aren't a strong speaker. Or they want to be in film, but they're not as good looking to be a lead role, or whatever it is, right? So self-awareness is really important. That's like me thinking I'm going to beat LeBron James at basketball. It ain't going to happen no matter how hard I try, right? And just like he's not going to beat me at computer science. So, and that's okay. So my point here is you have to be accurate in your thinking about 3 things. One is yourself, others, and the world. And so the third thing the GPS needs is accurate data on the terrain. If it thinks there's a road to the right and it's actually a cliff, it's going to keep driving off a cliff repeatedly and then blaming the government or blaming the world or when in reality, the true root cause of the issue is actually inaccurate thinking. Here's the problem though. Even if you think perfectly accurate about yourself, others, and the world, sometimes you still lose. The hurricanes that happened in Florida and in North Carolina recently, one of my team members, Nicole, was in North Carolina. She could make every good choice in the world, and that still would have happened. And so here's the problem. We make bad choices, bad things happen, and we blame others. And when we make good choices and good things happen, we give ourselves the credit. When in reality, sometimes bad things happen to good people, sometimes good things happen to bad people, and it's very hard to decipher between those. And so ultimately, it's like poker kinda. You might have pocket 2s, you might have pocket aces, but it's how you play the hand. And there's a way to play the hand to where you maximize your probability of success. However, you might still lose even with pocket aces. And that's, I think, a good metaphor because ultimately the best you can do is the best you can do, and you can better your best. My best at 36 is way better than my best at 32, way better than my best at 12. And so everyone's doing their best, but almost no one is bettering their best. And to me, that's an alarming statistic.
Excellent. Thank you. What I would like you to do now, as our time is coming to a close, is who should connect with you? Who can you help, and how do they contact you?
Thank you so much, by the way, for having me. I really appreciate it. I want to start and end with gratitude always. This is a dream come true. At one point, I started listening to podcasts after that car accident, and they really helped me sort of reconstruct my life in a more positive direction. And now I'm doing that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. As for who should work with me, I never used to have the courage to share this, and I'm so grateful that I do now through a lot of the therapy work I've been doing. If you have low humility and low work ethic and low grit, and you want massive rewards for minimal effort, you will not like me at all. And you should not work with me. And honestly, please don't reach out. And I never used to have the courage to say that, because I spent a lot of my life, I think, trying to save people like that. And I am done with that. There's an expiration date on trying to save people like that.
Exactly.
And I've definitely reached mine through massive pain and suffering. So if you are humble, have grit and work ethic, and you want to earn success through unique fundamentals and self-awareness, you should totally reach out. And I think you'll adore what we do at Next Level University. And I think, we can just help you. We're not going to help you skip steps. I don't think there is really skipping steps, but we can definitely help you accelerate your growth in a better direction. And the way I see it is, you are where you are right now, but there is a bigger, better, brighter future on the other side of taking personal responsibility for what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. And really having the right people around you is just so important to that. So if we have a community of self-improvement oriented dream chasers that are just amazing, and please reach out. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We have a website called nextleveluniverse.com, spelt just like it sounds. We also have Next Level University podcast, spelt just like it sounds. And if you do reach out, please just provide context, because like all of us nowadays, I do get a lot of spam.
Is there anything in closing you would like to share with the audience?
I think the thing that I would end with, and this has been something I've been thinking a lot about lately, and I'm very grateful now. I do coaching, training, and podcasting mostly, and all of it is around helping people achieve their goals and dreams by improving themselves. I call it business coaching, but underneath it is just helping these people realign and improve themselves. People don't pay you for self-improvement coaching. I tried. But ultimately, personal responsibility is what I try to end on, because it's not my fault my dad died. It's not my fault my stepdad left. Even though unconsciously I probably took a lot of that on. But it is my responsibility to make a life out of that, because no one's going to come save me.
Right.
And if you can dig deep and take personal responsibility for where you're at, even though it might actually not be true. Like, so for example, a lot of the excuses people make, the problem is they're actually true. Maybe your government is corrupt. Maybe the system is against you. Maybe you are suppressed and not treated fairly because you're a woman or of a different race. That is all true. However, it's not going to help you to stand behind that. It's not going to help you to hide behind that. And so we all have strengths and weaknesses. We all have advantages and disadvantages. And ultimately, underneath all of this, the only way to have a meaningful life is to take personal responsibility for the life you're given, and to really, instead of saying, oh, I'm grateful, show me that you're grateful by maximizing who you are. And show me that you're grateful by trying to have an impact far beyond yourself. And my life became way more meaningful when I started doing that versus when I was drinking and partying and focused on fun. So a lot of people, they romanticize carefree wandering. They romanticize partying and fun. They're deeply unfulfilled. I did the same. And honestly, underneath it, what really matters are the tried and true fundamentals of personal responsibility and goals and dreams, and making the world a better place one day at a time.
I have 3 words. You have been challenged. You have challenged us. You have definitely stimulated us, and also encouraged us. For that, I thank you. And I thank you for being on Never Ever Give Up Hope.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.